Hey, soccer fans, welcome back to the Feed the Fire podcast. I am your host, Nick, and it's been a little late since the last game against Nashville, and I guess I was just kind of trying to work up the motivation to recap another loss against Nashville SC, and it got me thinking, and yeah, the Fire have not beaten Nashville SC since they have entered Major League Soccer in a regular season matchup. So we're going to look back at the 2-0 defeat at Soldier Field. We're going to look at the stats, the goals, as well as hear from John Donovan on his thoughts on the Chicago Fire's latest results. Also, it was cool being at the game, being at Chicago Day, a day to celebrate Chicago and all the things about the city, the music, the sports, the food, everything. We had a great double header, great weather. Red Stars, sorry, not the Red Stars anymore. Chicago Stars of the NWSL had their game against Seattle Reign kick off at 4 o'clock, and they held a commanding 2-0 lead throughout the match until the final 10 minutes. And everyone who was in the South Concourse waiting in line to get some autographs from Chicago legends saw those last two goals on the video screen. You just heard everyone go, ugh. It was such a letdown, but it was great to see all the support for everyone who came out for the Stars match, everyone who was there early, tailgating and coming into the South Concourse, playing all the games, being with their families, celebrating the Chicago sports legends who were there signing autographs. And I got some pictures to show you in a second. But then also the Fire match and the Chicago musicians who were there. Everyone involved. It was a great day to celebrate Chicago and the Chicago Fire. And speaking of some Chicago legends, they had lined up for autographs. First of all, of course, CJ Brown. And if you go onto the YouTube channel, you can see I printed out some 5x7 pictures of everyone and was able to get them to autograph the pictures as well as take some selfies. It was my youngest son and I at the match with some other family friends, and he had no idea the presence of greatness that he was in. Like, he's met CJ Brown before, just like hanging out on the concourse, and he's just kind of in awe of the massive athletic body that CJ Brown still has. But it was cool to see him. He was signing autographs, and even CJ, when he took a look at this picture, just goes, whoa, that's an old one. And I said, CJ, the internet never forgets. They also, next to CJ, had Japanese women's legend and former Chicago Red Stars player Yuki Nagasato. So I found a few different pictures of her. I couldn't pick one I liked best. So I think this Red Stars photo is good. But this is just like the classic, her walking out of the tunnel after, I'm pretty sure this is a World Cup match, as well as, her celebrating with her 2011 World Cup trophy and medal that, if you remember that game, U.S. soccer fans, that was when the United States was up 2-0 on Japan in the final in 2011, and Japan scores a goal, I think, in like the 85th-ish minute or something like that, and gets a second one in stoppage time. Wildly, one of them was a header off a corner, and you don't think about the Japanese women's team being able to dominate in the air against the U.S. women's team, but I think they got one of them off the corner, off of a header, and then end up beating the U.S. in penalty kicks. So it was an incredible, incredible game, one of those instant classics, if you like that phrase. I also got to see Scott Darling, which was very cool. The Blackhawks goalkeeper from 2015 helped them win a Stanley Cup. He was teasing my son a little bit, going, do I not look like that guy anymore in the picture? Very cool also to see Israel Adonijah, Bears defensive lineman from their 2006 Super Bowl run. Unfortunately, not winning the Super Bowl, but I was telling him, I said, man, I remember exactly what I was doing, where I was, who I was with throughout that entire course of that game. That's the one where Hester ran back the opening kickoff, and then Peyton Manning kind of picked apart the Bears, and it was a interception by former Illini Kelvin Hayden that kind of sealed things for the Colts late in that game. But man, that was one heck of a Super Bowl to watch. But man, Israel Adonijah, I forget when he retired, but he looks like he can still throw on the pads and go out there and make a few plays. Another guy who still looks like he could make some plays, Bears Hall of Famer, is he on the Hall of Fame? Yeah, I think he's in the Hall of Fame. I'm going to have to go look that up and confirm it. Otis Wilson, the linebacker from their Super Bowl team in '85. Otis Wilson, again, very cool guy. fist bumped my son, holds out his Super Bowl ring so that my son could look at it, and he's just in awe of all the jewelry and the gold on it. It was pretty incredible. Then, of course, was Ron Kittle, White Sox Rookie of the Year back in '83, I believe. So I was able to pull out my old White Sox card and Baltimore Orioles card of Ron Kittle and get him to autograph it. And he's kind of chuckling because I don't think he's seen one of these cards in years. And the athlete next to him is laughing, saying, "Wow, look at those old cards." And I looked at that athlete and said, "Don't worry, Will Purdue. I've got one of yours as well." So I was able to get a couple of shots of Will Purdue, or one of my photos and one of my cards of Will Purdue autographed as well. And it's just wild to think, as big of an athlete as Adonijah and Otis Wilson were, like Will Purdue walks up and then is like looking down on them. That man was so tall. But it was so cool, and it was really great for the Chicago Fire to organize those athletes coming back, taking time to take some pictures, sign some autographs for the fans. Great celebration in Chicago. Really cool. All of them were very humble, very nice to talk to. Had a lot of fun on that celebration of Chicago. Unfortunately, I think the highlight of the day was getting those autographs, not the actual result, not the senior men's team's performance on the pitch there. The Fire again falling 2-0 to Nashville. Now, as I mentioned, Chicago Fire have not actually beat Nashville in MLS regular season since Nashville joined the league in 2020. Their first matchup back in that 2020 season was a 1-1 draw. Then it goes on from then to now. Nashville 5-1 victory, 0-0 draw, Nashville 3-0 victory. Oh, wait, there's the Chicago Fire victory. It is there. July 8th, 2023, the Chicago Fire get a 1-0 victory over Nashville. But from then, it has been Nashville 1-0, Nashville 3-0, Nashville 7-2, Nashville 2-0 in the latest matchup. So Nashville has absolutely dominated this matchup between two Midwestern teams here. Whether they're in the East or the Western Conference, they have always found success against the Fire. And telling one of my friends who's a casual soccer fan, who we come to a Fire game together every year, and I said, I don't know if they've ever beaten them, but I will tell you that Nashville is like the team, the boogeyman for the Fire, because it was against Nashville that we all were like, we got to get rid of Klopas again. It was against Nashville where they sacked Ezra Hendrickson, and I think I'm trying to think back when Rafa Wiki's last game was, if it was an end of the season match against Nashville that may have also put the nail in his coffin, but doesn't look like the timing matches up there. But like Nashville have been the boogeyman for the Chicago Fire since joining this league. I wish it was a more competitive series, because I think these two would be almost natural rivals. Yeah, there's the St. Louis rivalry. Yeah, there's the Columbus rivalry. But now that Nashville is back in the Eastern Conference, I think this would be a phenomenal rivalry between the two fan bases. You can play a little bit off of the hockey rivalry that's there, the joke about the Chicago White Sox selling the club and moving to Nashville, potentially being the Nashville Sox. That would have just added more fuel to this fire, to this potential rivalry here. But unfortunately, it is not the case to be. So again, head to head over the last 6 seasons, Chicago 1 win, Nashville 6 wins and 2 draws. Fire have scored 5 goals, and Nashville have scored 22. So not a good team that the Fire like to face. In this latest matchup, it was Hani Mukhtar in the 56th minute and Sam Surridge in the 75th. We saw Nashville in the first half try to replicate their success against the Fire back when they won 7-2 down in Nashville. They looked to play quick counterattacking balls over the top, trying to take advantage of a little of their speed and a little bit of their skill against the Chicago Fire center backs. But Chicago was ready for it. They did not allow Nashville to get in and behind them, which was great. But now, this is something I'm not sure. I've been wrestling with this thought. I didn't want to come out and say, this is where Greg Berhalter got out-coached by BJ Callahan. But in the second half, you saw Nashville starting to get more numbers forward. They realized that they could have a little bit of possession against the Chicago Fire. And that first goal, I forget if it was in part off a corner or if it was just something that got played down into the corner. The pass was pulled back to Hani Mukhtar, who was about at the top of the 18, unmarked, and there were a number of Nashville players and Fire defenders in the box, but Mukhtar was able to one-time it, put it upper 90. Jeff Gall had no chance on that one. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. This is a shift in Nashville tactics here. They put more players in the attack. Maybe they felt the Chicago Fire weren't very threatening, or if they were, it was just going to be a counterattack to Kuipers or Bamba up the wings with Zinkernagel's absence. Sidebar, congratulations, Philip Zinkernagel, on your nuptials, on your wedding. That was the reason why he was out. It was a pre-planned time off during the season when he signed with the Fire. It was all agreed to, and that's what we've been hearing. And then, of course, we see all the photos come out that Philip Zinkernagel took the time off to go get married. So perfect timing for him, and wishing him a long, happy life with his new wife, Anna. Back to the match here. We saw the change in tactics. Nashville started building a little bit more possession, and I'm going to look at the stats in a second to see if that holds out. If my eye test matches the possession statistics that we'll analyze, and then they were able to get Mukhtar open at the top of the box, get the ball pulled back to him from a pass from the wing, and he gets the shot upper 90 back of the net. Now, 20 minutes later, it's Sam Surridge with the second goal. This one was really disheartening. Again, the Fire did a good job of locking down Sam Surridge. He was fouled a lot in that game, and the Fire got appropriate yellow cards for it. But it was Surridge who receives the ball at the top of the box, dribbles through three defenders, and I do mean through three defenders. This wasn't just, he had guys chasing him. He actually had to have the technical ability to dribble through, around, juke, deke, whatever you want to call it, past three defenders and then rip a shot. And Gall tried to read it. When a top striker like this is standing 5 yards away from you and he's moving to his left, Gall thinks he's going to try and bend it to the far post, so he just sprawls out, keeps his arms as wide as he can, body as big as he can, but Surridge just slots it near post for the goal. So you can't blame Jeff Gall for either one of these when you're getting open looks from that close in, and with Mukhtar's perfect placement on his goal. But it was a good tactical shift by BJ Callahan and Nashville SC to, I think, and again, we'll see if the stats bear it out, develop a little bit more possession, start picking the Chicago Fire defense apart a little bit. And then did they even get their subs in first? That's the other thing I want to see, how the subs kind of affected this match. Let's take a look at the summary page here, where we see that it was the Nashville subs that Kellen Acosta came in for Mauricio Pineda at halftime, and then we see Andy Nahar come in as well for halftime, and he's the one that gets the assist for Mukhtar. So the subs make an impact for Nashville SC. Then we see Perez come in the 64th, and it's that point where Berhalter says, we got to get some fresh legs in there. He brings in Barroso for Jonathan Dean to reinforce the back a little bit, then brings in hat-trick hero Tom Barlow for Marin Haile Selassie, and I remember saying it out loud. I'm like, 2 strikers, yes! But it was just not executed. I don't know if it was something that the Fire hadn't practiced, or maybe Berhalter told Barlow, look, you're going in for Selassie. You just, again, be the typical workhorse like you are and try to play a through ball to Kuipers. But shortly thereafter, 3 minutes after Barlow's entrance, that's when Surridge gets the second goal. And immediately after, we see Nashville sub in Yazbek for Boogeymen, reinforcing the defense a little bit. And then the 90+5 substitution. Krikorin gets in, gets some token minutes, and kind of run out the clock a bit there. So that is what happened. So getting back to my original point, Callahan and Nashville made the right adjustments. Berhalter was ready, shut down the long ball, shut down the counterattack against Nashville. Nashville makes the adjustments. They build a little bit of possession. They work the passing in their offensive third and the Fire's defensive third, and they convert 2 goals. Berhalter seemed to continue to play the same style throughout the match. I don't believe he made any sort of adjustments tactically. Now, I did just say, I brought in Barlow for Haile Selassie. Barlow, is he really going to be a true winger? Is he going to kind of come in and press a little bit more, stay more central? Were they going to try to go to a two striker type of system? Whatever the look was, it didn't quite pan out. So I think it was just kind of we need to keep Kuipers on the field. We need our offensive. We need offense. We need attack going on. So that I think that's what that was. It wasn't some sort of tactical shift of X's and O's. It was just we need attackers. We need to get more offense out there. So I didn't want to be critical of Berhalter and say you got out coached. Callahan kicked your butt again, proving that the student has now become the teacher. All those kind of storylines that are out there, because Bamba had two really, really good opportunities that he just put wide of the post. One in the first half, one in the second half. Any other night this season, I think those would have been 2 goals, and the Fire at worst would have come away with a 2-2 draw out of this one. But Bamba puts his 2 shots just outside the far post on the one and the near post, I think, on the other. And that, to me, is the difference. In a very back and forth, evenly looking game, the Nashville converted their 2 best opportunities and Chicago didn't. So let's take a look at the stats and see if everything that I believe was going on in this match actually bears out. Possession, Nashville, 50.1%, Chicago, 49.9%. So yeah, just about even possession there. Next stat, shots, 16 for the Fire, 11 for Nashville. Shots on goal, 8 for the Fire, 3 for Nashville. So in that sense, the Chicago Fire definitely underperformed. And let's jump down to the expected goals. The Fire end up with a 1.8 expected goals, while Nashville ends up with a 1.3. So the Fire underperforming the statistical models here with their 8 shots on goal, resulting in 0 goals. Both teams blocked 2 shots. The Fire ended up with 506 passes at an 84.4% accuracy rate. Meanwhile, Nashville, 472 passes at an 84.3% accuracy rate. The Fire had 9 corners. A few of them came in real quick succession, so they finished off with Frank, and everyone got their free Portillos the next day. The Fire had 9 crosses to Nashville's 6. 3 offsides were called against the Fire, none against Nashville. Let's see, Gall's credited with 1 save. Joe Willis credited with 8 saves. So there's your other telling statistic on this one. Nashville had 3 shots on goal, 1 save by Jeff Gall, 1 and 2 in the back of the net. Meanwhile, the Chicago Fire, 8 shots on goal, 8 saves by Joe Willis. And there were a couple where he really stretched out. You don't realize how long and big of a man Joe Willis is until he's making those saves. 19 fouls committed by Nashville to Chicago's 7 fouls committed. That, to me, seems a little odd. I guess late in the game, Nashville was trying to disrupt the rhythm, commit the fouls, break up counterattacks and promising attacks, and they ended up getting 5 yellow cards as a result of it, and the Fire only get 2 yellow cards. But if we're looking at kind of these 5-minute intervals, it was actually the Chicago Fire with the majority of the possession in the second half. So that really didn't bear out to what I was thinking the rhythm of the game was. But there were probably 1, 2, 3, 4 segments of that second half, 4 of those 5-minute segments of the second half where Nashville did control possession or was about even with the Fire. So again, it was a much more even game than the score suggests, and it was Nashville converting their chances while the Chicago Fire did not. So here with some further commentary, our special guest, John Donovan, is going to let you know everything that he takes away from this game and what's going on with the Chicago Fire. And as a reminder, John Donovan's segment is brought to you by Skira, Icelandic spring water. Skira is Icelandic for clear. The water comes from a government-protected nature preserve in Iceland. Skira, clearly, pun intended, it's some of the best water in the world, and it's available at your local 7-Eleven. So with that, I will turn it over. John, take it away.
Nick, John Donovan here, talking about the MLS. Nick, we had a game against Nashville that right from the beginning, I felt that the the lineup was a little bit unbalanced. Selassie up front, no problem. The kid can score. He's a good runner. Is he as good as his replacement? No. But he's a great guy off the bench, a lot of speed, everything. But the one spot that I'm always very leery about is center fullback. And when I saw the name Omar Gonzalez there, it really showed that the Fire are struggling at that position. You just can't play a 36, 37-year-old guy with marginal skills in the game of professional soccer. I knew from the beginning that there was going to be a problem there, and there was. Elliott had to overplay quite a few times because Gonzalez just couldn't get back. And on the goal that was by a fabulous player, a cross from a fabulous player, Nahar of Honduras, the Nashville guy just buried it. And what happened was Omar Gonzalez couldn't keep up with him. Or he had a brain moment or whatever, but that's when he scored. And then another guy that really did not, that probably was part of that score was Pineda. I've been a fan of Pineda for a long time, but this was not his game. Maybe, I know he was a good center mid for North Carolina, and he's played all over the field for the Fire. He's been a wonderful substitute. But if I was Berhalter, I think I'd put Oriel in that position. You don't see a lot. We saw a couple with Bombia breakthroughs, and he just missed twice. But Oriel, I believe, would be the proper center mid. I think he'd be the guy that would lock up with that good forward line that we have to make the difference on the squad. When you're down and you have such cost limits, that guy off the bench or that basically fullback, especially fullbacks, we've been through Tehran. Cups is, I believe, away for some sort of under 17 or who knows, maybe under 16 tournament, and Brady's gone. We've had a lot of people gone, but in that center spot, Rogers didn't do that well. A couple of goals were scored against him, and then Tehran is off, and I was hoping that Cups would stick around and not go away to these international tournaments, but I guess when you're young, you have to do it. But the club was harmed a little bit. I mean, we have some injuries, but in that spot, you cannot play a guy that's struggling with his speed. You just can't do it, and that's Omar Gonzalez. I was surprised that he signed this year. I was really quite shocked that Berhalter went and signed that contract. But we'll have to see. I mean, we're out of the playoffs. We're in 10th place, and a lot of quality teams are below us. Atlanta really, for a team that just oozed out money, they are not doing it. And I don't know what's happening down there. It's not the coach. They've been through 5 or 6 coaches since their championship league, and they just can't get it right. It's strange. And then on the other hand, you have Philadelphia, who at the beginning of the season, people were picking to finish last, and they're first. And Lord B, San Diego is in second place in the Western Conference, and the Chicago Fire. We've been around since 1998, I believe, and we cannot just get past that line. I believe we'll be in the playoffs this year, Nick. But Berhalter really has to develop these players and maybe use that designated spot on, say, a center mid. If he's not willing to give Oriel that spot. So it's still exciting soccer, Nick. I was a little bit desperate when Berhalter kept demanding that they play out of the back. I just don't get that. I think that you have to have all the options open for a game. But he's done that in the past. He did it with a Columbus team years ago in the final of the conference or the championship. He was scored on in like the first 30 seconds, I believe, and ended up losing that game 1-0. So I think the combination of playing out of the back and going long is the way to go. And as soon as the Fire did that in that game and they got out of being cornered back there, the game opened up. So we had the scoring opportunities. Joe Willis was spectacular in the game, or lucky. You don't know. You got to be a little bit of two. So that's it, Nick. Thank you. Hey, Mike.
John, thank you so much for your analysis and recap. I really do appreciate you, sending us your clips each and every week and being able to text you throughout the week everything that's going on with the Fire and with MLS. And what you mentioned about Christopher Cupps, he was away for U17 youth national team duty, picked up an injury in one of their tournament games. So we'll see what the status is with him and when he is back and available for the Chicago Fire, because he held his own, and his minutes that he has put in with the first team this year, despite being 16 years old, he has held his own and looked very comfortable back there with Jack Elliott alongside of him and his midfield help of Odahel, Gutierrez, and Pineda ahead of him. So he'll definitely be an asset for this club as long as they don't end up selling him for a few $1,000,000 somewhere overseas. Now, getting back to the Chicago Fire, and to kind of touch on what John had said here, the Fire's next match, June 25th, Wednesday night, 7:30 against the Philadelphia Union here in Chicago. And the Union sitting atop the Eastern Conference on 37 points, currently leading the Supporter Shield standings. They're 2 points ahead of Vancouver, and they are but both teams are averaging 2.06 points per game. Vancouver's got a game in hand. So the Chicago Fire are facing potentially their toughest opponent of the season, assuming that Philadelphia maintains their form. Their away record is 5 wins, 2 losses, and a draw. And here's what really stands out. And obviously, this isn't a surprise when you have a team who's atop the Supporter Shield standings halfway through the season. They have 34 goals scored. That is third most in the Eastern Conference, behind Miami and, surprise, surprise, the Chicago Fire. Goals allowed, though, 19 goals allowed. That is the I'm looking through the standings here, third best in MLS and second best in the Eastern Conference. Only New England has allowed less goals. New England's only allowed 15 goals in 16 games, but they've only scored 19. So that's why they're down in the 11th spot, just behind the Fire. And then you have Vancouver atop the Western Conference, has only allowed 14 goals in 17 games. So that is what Philadelphia is looking like in the standings. As far as their form goes, they are starting, I guess you're going to call it a bit of a slump. They started the season 3 straight wins, winning 4 of their first 5. Then they go into a little bit of a slump. So their 6th, 7th, and 8th matches of the season, loss, draw, loss. But then they pick it up. 3 more straight wins. They have not lost since Week 8, April 12th at New York City. And from then, it has been 7 wins and 3 draws. But their last 3 matches have been 2 wins and a draw. Maybe the Fire are catching them at the right time for a down. If you want to say that's a down time for the league leader. But what is encouraging with the Fire, John's right, they are outside of the playoff line right now. They are in the 10th spot. They have 25 points. Charlotte is just ahead of them right now. And this is kind of our mid-season recap here, right, everybody? Where most teams have played 18 games. The Fire have played 17. New England's played 16. So there's a couple games here and there. But most of the teams have now played their 18th match. So it's a great time to look at the season from the midpoint. So again, Philadelphia, top of the table, Supporter Shield leader, 2.06 points per game. Meanwhile, you've got the Fire on 25 points, 1.47 points per game, which I think in most seasons would be good enough to make the playoffs. I think it's right around that, maybe a little higher, 1.6 or so. So the Fire do still have some work to do. The Fire do have a game in hand on every team ahead of them in the standings. The Fire have only played 17 matches, and the Fire still have a shot if they can go on a little bit more of a run in U.S. Open Cup at a trophy there. And if they end up winning their 5th U.S. Open Cup trophy, and miss the playoffs they end up in the 10 spot, I think I'd be okay with it. I think I'd be okay with how this season ends up. But I really do think the Fire can play well enough that they have enough of a roster to get into somewhere between that 7 and 9 spot. If everything breaks their way, then maybe they get up to that 6th spot, potentially maybe the 5th spot if the wheels fall off every other club, right? So again, the Fire are sitting in 10th. They are tied on points with Charlotte, but the first tiebreaker in MLS is wins. Charlotte has 8 wins. The Fire have 7. However, Charlotte has an even goal differential, and the Fire are currently at +4. So they do have a little bit of an edge on that second tiebreaker should it get to that point against Charlotte. The 8th place team right now in the Eastern Conference, New York Red Bulls, on 27 points. They have 8 wins as well and a +8 goal differential. So really that Nashville game hurt the Fire in a number of ways, not just a 5-goal. I mean, they were down 7-0. So the fact that they got 2 in at the end there, small consolation, but it that negative 5-goal differential in that game could potentially impact the standings here. Now, they did hang 7 against DC United a week later, so that was definitely, or a couple weeks later, so that was definitely a good thing. So they kind of leveled off a little bit there, but still, if you just, give up 1 or 2 less goals in that game, you give yourself just a little bit more separation between Charlotte on the second tiebreaker, and you get a little closer to the Red Bulls +8 goal differential. Additionally, New York City is at a +4 goal differential. They sit in the 7th spot on 28 points. So again, looking at our Eastern Conference standings for the halfway point of the season, in the top 4 spots, Philly, Cincinnati, Nashville, Columbus. Your final 3 playoff locks: Orlando, Miami, New York City. New York Red Bulls and Charlotte are in the play-in game, followed closely by Chicago and New England. I don't think we're going to see DC, Toronto, or Montreal make any sort of push up the table to try and challenge the Fire. However, Atlanta, yeah, John, you mentioned that they are really struggling, but that is one team that if they could figure out just a little bit, they could go on a run and string together some wins. And for whatever that's worth, if they don't, though, that's okay, because Chicago still has another matchup against Atlanta this season. So hopefully we take all 6 points against the 5 Stripes. And the Fire, even if they pull off a draw against Philly at home, they've got Charlotte, which Charlotte's going to be looking out for some revenge. That's for sure. Fire defeating them 4-1 at Charlotte in their prior matchup this season. But then they go on the road to Cincinnati and Minnesota. And Minnesota, no slouch. They are over in the Western Conference in the 3 spot. And then the Fire will take on San Diego at home. I'll see you at that game, soccer fans. And then they will travel to Atlanta, Montreal, and host the Red Bulls to wrap up July. So really, if everything breaks the Fire's way over the next few weeks, let's say draw Philly, draw Charlotte, draw Cincy. Those, I think, would be, if they get 3 straight, 1-1, 2-2 draws or 3-3 draws even, I think that would be okay, because you're not going to catch Philly and Cincinnati in the standings, and Charlotte is a team where you don't want to split the series. You don't want to go a win and a win. It would be nice to take a win and a draw. So I'd settle for that. Then if you're going to draw Minnesota, fine. It's a non-conference game. We'll see. Maybe Minnesota tries to rest some of their players. It's 4th of July weekend. I forget when's the All-Star game, if they're going to sneak that in there. If Boxall and St. Clair are going to be away on All-Star duty, that's what most people are thinking, and maybe that'll kind of give Chicago a bit of an edge, or they're going to try and rest some guys in July. Also, we know Chicago has fared pretty well against Western Conference opponents lately. So if they can draw Minnesota in Minnesota, beat San Diego at home, and then go to Atlanta and Montreal and pick up a few more wins, the Fire could be looking at an 8-game point streak potentially here. And again, I'm definitely being very glass half full right now. I fully admit that. Yeah, maybe it's a little out of my character, or especially out of the character of a Chicago sports fan. But the Fire could really build some points. And then at the beginning of August, they've got games at home to LAFC and St. Louis, two more Western Conference teams. So if LAFC and St. Louis are more worried about their conference standings and potentially resting some players and rotating squads, LAFC after Club World Cup duty, it could be beneficial to Chicago there. Now, the St. Louis match, St. Louis's season pretty much done. They are towards the bottom of the Western Conference standing. They are 14th of 15 teams. They got 15 points right now. I don't think they're seriously going to make a run at a playoff spot. So this is going to be a big game for them, depending on how much they treat this budding rivalry against Chicago. And then if you want to go all the way down, we're going to skip a few games. Chicago ends the season at their last three games at home against Columbus, at home against Toronto, and at New England. So maybe it's good this year that they end the season on an away game. They've been playing pretty good there so far. But also they get a game at home against New England in September and then away against New England in October. So if New England continues to be this floundering team and their season's lost and there's nothing to play for, that's a great time for the Chicago Fire to catch them. So the schedule, depending on some of these outcomes in July and in early August, the schedule may favor the Chicago Fire, but I definitely like those last three games, especially if you assume you're going to beat Toronto and New England. You can end the season with 6 points. And the way it is right now in the Eastern Conference, it is tight. It is tight, folks. So that's all we're going to say right now. We're going to let you get back to your regularly scheduled day. But I also want to remind everyone, please like, subscribe, rate, review, leave a comment, leave a quote. I would really love if everyone could maybe share a link out on social media, follow along on Twitter, X, Facebook, all at Glasshouse Soccer. Drop me a line, email me, glasshouseSoccer@gmail.com. I've got a few more emails to respond to as well, so thanks to everyone who's written in. And just as a reminder, we have MLS All-Star voting has closed. So I took a look at some of who are the favorites to make the All-Star team based on the early ballots that the league let us know. Again, there are 12 players who get voted in by the fans. So I have another podcast and YouTube episode lined up talking about all that. I even brought in a few special guests, my three kids, to talk about which Chicago Fire players they think should be included on the All-Star roster when Coach Nico Estevez gets his 12-player selections as well. So with that, I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening. Thank you, John. Thank you, Skira. And let's go Fire.